Welcome to Styled for Growth, the podcast where mindset meets style and presence becomes your power. I am your host, Antasia Shabrilla Moore, and each week we'll dive into the tools, truths, and transformation behind showing up as the woman you're meant to be, inside and out. Alrighty, y'all, what's going on? So welcome to episode 1, Style for Growth. I'm Antasia Shabrilla Moore. You know, my story with style has been, I guess, pretty much throughout my whole entire lifetime. I've always loved fashion. I've always been kind of artsy. As you all know, I have an Associate of Arts degree plus a Bachelor of Arts degree as well, which is usually in writing and creative expression. So therefore, you know, the podcast and able to conduct ourselves and kind of sort of communicate and things of that nature in a very creative manner is definitely what you're going to get throughout this particular podcast. And so what listeners can expect throughout this particular podcast series, especially on YouTube, is really how to enhance your lifestyle with your mindset and your style. So I know sometimes people really want to focus on lifestyle, but myself, I really just want us to focus on mindset and style. So listeners can expect to really kind of sort of find ways to enhance those two. So I'm really going to make sure that we can kind of sort of go forth and figure out some of those issues with that type of idea and thinking, and how we can kind of sort of see what that's going to entail. My own style journey has kind of evolved over the years, especially as a young adult. We go from childhood to being teenagers, and then we go into young adults, and then we kind of sort of wrap up that and start to go into like a setting sun. And that's basically where I'm at. So starting out as a kid, I was very kind of sort of well styled in the sense that our parentals was responsible for most of it. And our parentals, as you all know, is really our sounding board. They're our backbone. And that's what I believe should be for all young ladies, all women. Their parents are really the setting stone for what it is that these young ladies are to necessarily kind of build or express and experience. So that's definitely where it starts from. And it starts so much so from that to the point where our father's mom actually ended up running a retail store, which was around clothing. So she ran a clothing store. And it was called Sherez, Class with Pizzazz. And I go there as a young kid, teenager, and I help kind of keep store and things of that nature, and kind of sort of check out the garments and do that whole type of shebang. And I always found it very fun. I never thought that was something that was out of the ordinary. I always wanted to be there and go and experience that particular atmosphere. And so that's where most of the artsy things really stem from. So as a kid, I really didn't have much control. That was really our mother. But I always really remember, like memories and things like that of having different outfits, whether it's from the Walt Disney stores. And then as we grew up and began to shop as a teenager on my own, I began to do places that were similar to Forever 21, or like a really interesting online shopping experience for those times where I really wanted to figure out what was taking place with prom. So we're still into the teenage years, and I would just scour the websites and see what they were pushing for that particular prom season, 2008. And that's how I came across some of the ideas that I thought about. I actually believe that one of the ones that I did see online in one of the stores that we were here locally who was selling prom gowns, I actually believe I actually did get to try on one of the ones that I saw online, and it did not fit. It was I want to say a really bright pink kind of color, like a fuchsia, really deep pink. And it just did not resonate well with myself. So I ended up going with a really light, pretty yellow for dealing with prom season. And that's where the tailoring and the alterations and things of that nature had to kind of sort of manifest, because for some reason when I originally bought this particular gown, I did a small, medium, and large. Of course, there was no point in having a large because in high school I was really small, like maybe $1.20, maybe $1.27. And so I knew that was probably going to be a bit much, like a stretch. And so I really didn't want to do that. So we did a small. I was trying to do the small, but the small was too small. It was so small. I was like, well, I don't know if anybody's kind of sort of doing something. So maybe it's like an altered thing or something like that. So I ended up getting the medium and putting it on. And I don't remember doing much at the bottom where the hook was. It was a exposed back. And so I remember, like, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to say that we did anything extra with that back part at the bottom, but the straps, oh my God, we just chunked those straps up so and it made it much snugger. That particular alteration made the back of that dress a little more form-fitting instead of so loosely, but not also too tight, because it was harder to find the small and add more to have it fit better and necessarily grab the one that was fitting but just a little looser. And then if you take those spots, and it actually began as a perfect fit. So that's some of the story just in general, so to speak. And then you have those in between years where I love to borrow clothing as well, especially from one of my cousins, Shantia. So that was probably one of my favorites. And then she had a girlfriend, Kiana, as well. And I love some of Kiana's things, especially her jewelry. So I always kind of sort of wanted to like meddle with it in that sense. That, oh, this is pretty, this is shiny. I kind of sort of want to see what this looks like. And it's just a very natural eye towards those type of ideas. No one forced me, like, oh, look, this is cute. I didn't say, don't you pour this? And like, oh, this is something like, okay, I can find something similar or something of that nature. And so that was pretty much what that was. And so we always really enjoyed one other's company. And I kind of sort of am thinking now sometimes that that's what they mean. Like those were the good old days or something like that. So it's almost like a sentiment of missing some of your homegirls or your friends and things of that nature. But friendship is not for the faint of heart, okay? Like friendships are really about respecting one another, so much so to the point where your input matters, your opinions matter. Because eventually you will see that they don't necessarily have to be there. And that's necessarily what the point is. That's necessarily what you're going to kind of come across. Girlfriends who kind of sort of have those experiences and share some of their style expertise based off what took place. And when we touch on mindset, I mean, personally speaking, I have really had to figure out how to adjust throughout different kind of sort of scenarios that take place, especially in social settings like high school, because the mindset around girls who are going to prom and those who are not is different. One is not going to prom, so of course when you see others who are, it might elicit feelings of jealousy naturally, because you are kind of sort of aware of what causes that mindset. You want to go, but since you're not, you're jealous of those who did or who are able, and that causes that particular mindset of jealousy. And sometimes those girlfriends can really be rather mean too. Jealousy is really not a positive emotion. And I say that to say that because when you think about those things, this memory serves me. When I can recall that I never really wanted to talk to this young lady any longer, Auntie Essence. And so I just was so like traumatized that there was lies being told about the things that we were going to do. There was lies between T Essence and Shania about going to MAC for prom makeup and just waiting so long to the last minute. So it was almost just plain outright sabotage. And then there was scenarios like that that makes that mindset rather negative. And so as we got older, we drifted further and further. Because, and even now, as I look back in hindsight, I see Tia since a little bit. She follows me online via Instagram, and I'll go to her profile very rarely. But as of lately, when I have gone, I see now that she's very obese, overweight. I don't know if all of those are her kids, but I believe it's probably like, man, at least 3 kids. Myself personally, I've only have one daughter. And so I'm just guessing that this is stress on her body physically, her mindset, and her mental state has caused her to expand in such even worse ways. I mean, even in high school, she was a little kind of overweight and things like that, but it was never to that extent, that extreme. And so now the guy that is in her life basically mostly is usually an immigrant, a Pakistani guy. Usually we're always into black males, or just that persona of keeping what the family structure was and about. And now this is just been totally eradicated to the point where I barely even know her. We don't call each other any longer. So none of those things that once was is even in reality is a manifestation any longer. And so she had a comment, and I was trying to figure out what this comment was implying. You know, Scorpios are just so investigative. Like, it's good morning. Oh, is it really? You know what I mean? So I went out and about. I saw one of my girls online on YouTube, and she was giving some great advice. And so I decided to take it. So I packed up my daughter and I took us out to run some errands. And one of the errands, including what the YouTuber was speaking about, was like, just going to pick up some groceries. I need to go to the gas station. And then our last stop was probably the one that the young lady, the YouTuber, was suggesting, to figure out what our styles were based off what takes place now in the current malls. And so we were just guessing that this is stress on her body physically, her mindset, and her mental state has caused her to expand in such even worse ways. I mean, even in high school, she was a little kind of overweight and things like that, but it was never to that extent, that extreme. And so now the guy that is in her life basically mostly is usually an immigrant, a Pakistani guy. Usually we're always into black males, or just that persona of keeping what the family structure was and about. And now this is just been totally eradicated to the point where I barely even know her. We don't call each other any longer. So none of those things that once was is even in reality is a manifestation any longer. And so she had a comment, and I was trying to figure out what this comment was implying. You know, Scorpios are just so investigative. Like, it's good morning. Oh, is it really? You know what I mean? So I went out and about. I saw one of my girls online on YouTube, and she was giving some great advice. And so I decided to take it. So I packed up my daughter and I took us out to run some errands. And one of the errands, including what the YouTuber was speaking about, was like, just going to pick up some groceries. I need to go to the gas station. And then our last stop was probably the one that the young lady, the YouTuber, was suggesting, to figure out what our styles were based off what takes place now in the current malls. And so we went to Great Lakes Mall, which is in Mentor, Ohio. And by the time we get out there and I find some pieces that I really was kind of sort of drawn to, which happened to have been, well, actually all was kind of sort of even made it go viral. So thank you all for that. For our subscribers, y'all are so sweet and kind, and definitely a big piece of what takes place. So thank you. And anyway, nonetheless, so that was the one that was drawn to, which was the red pantsuit, like a power suit. And it was a blazer, very tailored, you know, things of that nature that really gives that structure that I'm really here for work and really not anything else. No chaos, no drama, no he said, she said, just to really earn my paycheck, be here for my people who need me, and then I'm gone, you know, and it's a mutual benefit, and I'm happy and I'm contented with that. Nothing less and nothing more. And so by the time I put everything together in the fitting room, and I have my daughter and everything, that's Tasia, she's okay, and I post a video and I edit and I kind of sort of make sure that everything looks okay. I'm not showing too many boobs or cleavage or breasts or anything of the nature that kind of is a flag for nudity or anything like that, because we all know that can be a bit much. And so finally I uploaded it in T. Essence comments. And so T. Essence commented about how cute that the look was. And I thought to myself, like, well, that's cool, like, but I know that I'm a beautiful female. So I wasn't sure what the point was. And when I addressed it, I realized that even some of you all who follow us on Instagram actually had shared that particular response. So thank you for that, for bringing awareness to that particular idea that I was trying to articulate and kind of sort of harbor, but really wanting to kind of sort of understand that those connections were there, and necessarily, so to speak, kind of sort of, I don't want to say, because I'm not sure if mend them is the correct word, but just to kind of sort of give that type of energy back based off what we wanted to do, and not necessarily really, I hate to even say that, who's in the peanut gallery or who is kind of sort of throwing shade in the comments or who's in the comments. Because again, it's not about that. It's really about empowering the woman that you see when you're looking inside of the mirror. So I really just want to push that forward. And people are wanting to know, why does style for growth matters now? And that's a really great question. I mean, I find myself recording these episodes with such a sincere heart as an outlet. And, that's really a crucial piece as to why this series matters. Because you see so many times that females are really just recording and uploading. There's really no thought process behind it. And it's really sad, because I was just saying this to myself. Like, if I'm uploading this piece of content, is this a person who's going to benefit from this? Or am I just wanting to be the center of attention? And that answer really dictates between a success and a person who's really going to experience a failure. And so for myself, as I go forth and kind of figure out what it is that is going down, and has a moment for kind of sort of like having a moment to make sure that those things are done in a particular manner, then this is necessarily why this particular podcast is produced and necessarily is readily available in the platforms that it is. So that's why I'm kind of sort of pushing this particular type of content as of lately. And plus, I really didn't have any other ideas as of lately for putting anything else out on YouTube. I mean, I know I could do what other girlies do, but I really wanted to have something that was cohesive, that I thought about as an idea, and take some time away, even sometime, from social media, because it can be so draining. Our family members can be so toxic. If y'all are interested, I did put out a new Embers book, Fire Embers, that really deals with family members who are hurtful. So even just those examples that people are family members and just record and just upload, like, but what is the purpose behind your upload? And for myself, it wasn't what they were doing. And I guess that's another part of having your own thoughts and thinking patterns, which is a form of courage as well, to think for you and yourself and your loved ones too, authentically. That's why I always wanted to go with the name Authentic Glow Coaching. And so when you realize that you can take the videos, cool, but if I can compile them and create a clip art or a piece that really resonates what actually takes place, then that's even better. And you always want to aim to improve and not necessarily just settle for whatever the bare minimums are. So that's another really big part of why this particular niche matters, especially in fashion. I mean, fashion is a niche, and it's difficult to even understand that I really am coming from fashion. So I really am sharing this journey for the first time, but you all are as well. And that's a special, unique selling point to realize that we're doing these things, but they've really been here all along. So that's really necessarily what the whole entire point is as to why this matters. And a philosophy as to myself and how I think, especially as dealing with Authentic Glow Coaching, is really about having ladies around you who glow. It's almost like today, right? I was getting ready to take a shower, and I read some of my books before from Napoleon Hill. If you haven't reading this, I'm sure Napoleon Hill has graced your cover and your palette many a times, as much so with myself as well. And what I've learned, though, is that showering every day is a really great way to undergo that transformation of going from yesterday to today, or going from having a cluttered space to an area where you really feel resonates with your current woman, who really is going for what she wants. So when I really kind of embody those moments, then I really understand that philosophy is something that's really rooted in the truth. And for myself, nothing is higher or greater than any types of truths, no matter how scary those truths are. Because trust me, they are, okay? And I'm not saying that to kind of sort of instill fear. I'm saying that more so to necessarily bring awareness to how fearful certain decisions can be. And sometimes that is why prevention is better, so that it's really nothing to fear to begin with and or in the first place. So again, that's really what matters most, is that type of philosophy. And we're going to get into that unfoldment, I'm sure, as we go and progress, necessarily, so to speak, throughout the duration of the rest of this particular series. And, this podcast is really for individuals who are looking to glow up. I mean, people can do so superficially, just pile on the makeup or just kick the weight off through whatever surgery is the latest fad. And it's a quick fix. But the longer route to internally really figuring out things that endure and last is necessarily who this is for. Those women who prefer those routes. This is for you all. This is for my Suzanne, who knows that by being a woman of character, she'll succeed. This is for the young lady Maria, who struggles but is a beautiful soul to the point where, this is a moment where she's going to realize her greatest dreams. There's no higher ideal than that for a woman. So when you are surrounded by beautiful people who encourage you and want you to reach this potential and accomplish that goal and manifest this is definitely for you. So I hope that this is something that you are going to look forward to, because I'm really excited to kind of sort of indulge in and deeply, more in depth, a little bit later on into each particular episode. So I look forward to that. So subscribe and like, and make sure to share this video with the woman who is ready to rise. I hope y'all did get the takeaways from these particular ones. I'm welcoming. I'm ready to help any of my ladies who are stuck in their mindset and style and want to move forward. So let's do those things together. Whenever you're ready, more than welcome to visit me at www.payhip.com/authentic glow coaching.